$1,000 truck, it'd be twice as much as I paid.
Hello. She's up first. Hey, before you kick.
Okay,
I'm not,
at 5:30.
it's,
Started early one time and I heard about it.
well, they got that clock is fixed in supreme fashion at this moment.
Well, it is 5:30, so let's get started. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting of March 21st, 2023. Meeting is called to order. Roll call. Let the record reflect that everyone is present. Approval of the agenda. I suggest that we move item number 1 to last, and we'll start with item number 2. If I could hear a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we will start with item number 2. First of all, the minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? Are there any corrections? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes then.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 I wasn't here.
Mr. Code Officer report.
Nothing to report to the planning commission this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Old business, is there any old business to come before the meeting? Under new business, excuse me, we'll start with number 2. A request for a COA construction of a fast food restaurant at 601 Pavilion Parkway. Mr. Code Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a certificate of appropriateness request for 601 Pavilion Parkway. This is one of your outlots out in the Pavilion, Monroe Pavilion development. It's the second outlot you've seen being proposed for development since the project was finalized last year. The proposal is a proposed fast food restaurant with drive-through, and you can see they're going to access directly across from what is, I believe it's Pavilion Drive. I could be wrong about that. But right there on Pavilion Parkway, and if you recall, all of these lots have shared access throughout, so they're showing a shared access drive with the lot to the west, which was Whataburger, which this committee saw several months ago. And they're proposing parking west of the building and a drive-through lane on the south side of the building to wrap around to the east side. And they have proposed substantial landscaping with their submittal. This all exceeds our COA requirements for the amount of landscaping that we would have. So this is certainly above board from what we normally see for the 20-foot landscape buffers. And then they've provided you your elevations. The building itself was not too dissimilar from the Whataburger building, a combination of brick, EIFS, some composite cladding, some of that good-looking wood product that they have, and then some architectural metal accents are proposed in these elevations. They did include proposed signs in each of these elevations that this committee normally looks at, and they had included a pretty robust sign package. It looked like every possible sign that could ever exist at a Magoo's. So we apologize for the lengthiness of what you had to review, but it boils down to they were proposing, your wall signs, and then some monument signs were proposed. Just to give you an idea, those signs were displayed on their elevations. We didn't have an issue with really any of those signs. We have an issue with our corridor overlay district and the pavilion requirements. So you have that combination that we have to deal with there. So it's a very, very wonky. But they had proposed pylon signs, so we had want to be clear in our conditions that we're recommending approval, and they deal really specifically with signage. The rest of the development was fine, but we're asking that the signs be 2.5 square feet per linear foot of wall frontage, and that the wall sign only facing Pavilion Parkway be allowed to be illuminated. And then we're asking the rest of the signs on the sides and rear of the building to not be illuminated internally. This is your corridor design overlay requirements, and the internal illumination of their wall sign would be what's allowed in Monroe Pavilion. It's kind of a hybrid. And then the ground sign, we're being clear that there's only a monument-style sign allowed since they produced or proposed to have multiple types. We're being clear about that, and the requirements you see for it, the dimensions, the height, those are all straight out of the Pavilion pattern book. And so that's what's regulating the sign sizes on these, and we're asking that they only be allowed to be internally illuminated only on Pavilion Parkway only, and that any ones on 78 would not be allowed to be internally illuminated. If they were, they would need like the gooseneck lighting like we normally see in the rest of our corridors in the city. But just paraphrasing all those verbose conditions, but that was the recommendation of approval with those two conditions regarding signage, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'd ask at this time if there's anyone present to speak for this. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering. We're the civil engineers on the project. And I have never eaten at a Hugh Magoo's, but everybody I talked to says it's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to it being here, to be honest with you. So I don't really have anything to add to the staff report, but I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions that you may have and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
The only question I would have is are you in agreement with the conditions that set forth?
Yes, sir. Yes, we're fine with the conditions. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've had the chicken before, it's good.
We're good?
Really good.
Okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Glad you had a good experience.
Well, if there are no questions, I would ask if there was anyone present to speak in opposition to this request. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve with conditions.
So
I
move.
move. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion is approved.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Item number 3 is a request for a COA for signage at 615 East Spring Street. Mr. Kodos.
And this is a pretty simple request. You've already seen one COA request on the site some time ago before they started renovating their building. And as if you've driven by there recently, you can see that they've finished that in accordance with that approval from you guys. They're about, I think it was summer 21, I can't remember. So they had some building signage approved in that CRO request, but they didn't have their monument sign. So they're back before you to get a monument sign approved. The size that they've shown, the one that says yes, obviously is the one you're looking at. The one that says no, you're not looking at. But it's proposed to have your typical logo for the brand that's on there, and then LED signage for gas pricing. So we've just asked that sign not be internally illuminated, as your corridor design requirements do not allow for, that any illumination on it be external and downward facing. But the LED lighting throughout the city, it's my understanding, and I'm talking with Pat, we do allow this to have the LED lighting, because it's not typically changing very much. Modern way to display sign instead of the old polycarbonate things they would stick in the old internally illuminated signs. But we're okay with what he's proposed. We just asked that it not be internally illuminated. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ask if there was anyone present to speak for this request. Yes, sir.
I'm the owner of the property that being developed at 615, and we do agree to all the conditions that was proposed to us by the code enforcement.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I said we do agree with all the
no,
conditions that were.
Yeah, he's just asking you just to state your name for the
Oh, my-
record.
I'm
Your name
sorry.
For the record.
My name is Amin Noorani,
Okay, thank you.
and we do agree with all the conditions that were proposed to us. This is my third one today. You know, I've been in Winder and Fulton County, so I'm sorry.
Any other questions?
I just like to say I drove by the property the other day and it looks very nice.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Done a great job with it.
Improvement.
You got the tanks in now, I believe. That's,
Yes.
yep. That looked kind of overwhelming there for a moment.
Oh, it did.
I do,
Especially with the size of the property, they usually deal with a lot bigger property, but we finally got it figured out.
I do have a question. Your tanks, are they new tanks?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Then I would ask if there was anyone present to speak in opposition to this request, and seeing none, I will entertain a motion
I will motion to approve with the,
approve
with the single condition.
with the condition.
I'll second.
And a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. And we will refer back to item number 1 unless,
I don't know what the planning commission would like to do this evening. I can't get to her mail on my phone. I was gonna try to call her, but I'll leave it to the planning commission on what you guys decide to do. I know, normally the practice would be to table the item until the applicant can be here, so she can address any questions the commission may have before there's any decisions made.
well, I'll go ahead and it's a request for a COA for building modifications at 1200 South Broad Street. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm happy to present it, and then you guys can make a decision. I mean, I have no problem with that, because this is an existing site, so we're not talking about new construction with a lot of heavy lifting here. This was an old church, about 100 years old, and built from approximately 1920. And, it sits down here on South Broad, in the corner of West Fanbro and South Broad Street. And it's an older building, and that was probably added onto once, sometime many eons ago in the front. But the applicant's proposing to renovate this structure. It hasn't been used for a church in several years, if my understanding. It was being leased and used as a church. And so the applicant's actually asking this commission to convert this to a commercial building, which would be allowed under B3 zoning. This is not the issue, but your corridor design overlay requirements are kind of kicking in, and that's what her request is before you, is to get approval for those. So she's wanting to demo the existing ramp there. You see on the front, that blue ramp and door kind of sitting out in our right-of-way a little bit. She's wanting to refine that back against the building. As you can see, it's going to be just a ramp that's going to come from the side of the building and not the front, and have a deck that kind of matches itself all the way around. The same kind of railing detail and whatnot in the front, and then she wants to add an accent to the front facade of the building itself. And I believe she's asking to do some other enhancements on the site, which include landscaping, adding curbing. But she does ask that she retain the unpaved parking rule, which is 10 spaces or less. She wants to keep the unpaved portion for now. She may want to come back and do something different in the future for that, but for now it's proposed to be unpaved, but she will leave an ADA concrete pad space, which I think she had shown here on the plan. There'll be a little ADA concrete pad there as required by ADA, but the rest will be unpaved. I mean, these are all pretty much enhancements to the building and probably an improvement to the site. At least that's what we felt like in the review, was that this was a benefit to the site, and not a situation where the building would degrade and then not be used for a number of years and probably fall into some type of disrepair. So we're recommending approval, and all we ask is that there's a stanchion sign back at this photograph here. There's a weird little stanchion sign that's actually out in the right of way, and we're asking that be removed as part of this request.
Can you clarify again where that is? Because I'm not understanding exactly where that extension is.
So 1200 South Broad, I know my little aerial photograph here doesn't give you
On
great.
South Road, do you know?
I know the
are you-
property, I just don't know where that sign is.
Oh, it's
We can go back to the sign. So it's right here. It's right there. It's this.
right on the
it's a stanchion
corner.
Okay.
sign.
Is that Fambro Street next door there, where they?
Okay. I
Bait
understand
shops
now.
across the street.
Yeah.
And those couches aren't there, I promise you, that's
No,
not
the
the
couches
case.
aren't there, I rode by it. today.
Yeah, the Google Map photograph is from, I want to say June of last year.
Yeah, that sign does need to come down, you're right.
And the signing out, you're going to see an enhancement to the deck. So, I mean, the items she's proposed to improve will, I think, be benefits to the building. She's not 100% certain, which I'm not trying to speak for her, but in my conversations with her, she's not 100% certain what she wants to do with the building. But it wouldn't be used for a church.
That's what I was gonna ask. Well,
I mean, it's Zone B3, so it has a catalog of B3 uses that are allowed to it now currently. It's not a problem for us. If there wasn't a CDO issue and this wasn't on a corridor in the city, they would have simply applied for a building permit from Laura and go for the renovations. So this is really, the only thing that was triggered here was the need to go through the CDO approval.
Would she have to come back to us if she wanted to pave the parking lot?
I think that's gonna be a site change that's probably gonna be over $5,000, so the answer probably would be yes. Does she hasn't mentioned that she wanted to do that in the future. She did want to kind of keep that look because she wasn't sure, but I think to answer your question is that's gonna likely trigger the need to come back in front of you guys.
Any questions? What do you think? It looks like it could do nothing but improve that corner right there.
That area needs it badly.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
So if she's willing to do that,
It's a small ask, so
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of tabling the
Yeah.
motion.
yeah, with the one condition to take the sign down.
And if I may, I mean, I've had a conversation with her about that sign specifically, and I don't recall that being an issue with her to remove that
Wouldn't
sign.
think it would be.
No, she has there's no historical or aesthetic need for that sign. You're not in a historic district where that would be permitted, so I'm pretty certain that she was comfortable with that.
Well, if there are no other questions, I will have to ask if there was anyone present to speak in opposition. And seeing none, we'll ask for a motion to approve with condition.
I move we approve with the condition.
With the condition of second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The request is approved. The last thing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A
Second.
move and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.